It's the radio guy, Mike Prince. Welcome to another episode of the Mike Prince Show. Of course, we come to you each and every day here at the Open Mic Broadcast Network, and today would be no exception to the rule. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys that you can follow us on our social media handles for Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at the Mike Prince Show. The YouTube channel is Open Mic Broadcast Network, and our 24-hour dial-in message line, 713-570-6736. And without any further delay, we're going to jump right into today's episode. This person needs no introductory. He is a friend of the network, our basketball analyst. He's been featured on the Carlos Brown Show numerous times, and that's none other than the great coach himself, Coach Van Pettaway. How you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing fine, Dr. Prince. Happy to be here, and I hope everybody is practicing the safe techniques and everybody's being safe.
Yes, sir. No doubt about it. It's obvious that the world, not just the athletic world, but the world has been turned upside down with the events of the coronavirus in the 2020 episode. And Coach, I personally know for a fact that we'll forever do everything different from here on out.
I believe that also. I think this is a wake-up call for all of us, for the entire world, and I think we'll all have better safety measures in place from here on out.
Yes, sir. And you're a sports enthusiast, especially about the basketball. I'm a sports enthusiast. This is how, as they say, I keep the lights on each and every day. And people say, well, how is it that you're going to continue to do what you do? And I explain to someone, it's not any different. The only difference is you don't have daily scoring updates on the events that are taking place, but our stories are always there to be captured and shared with others.
Right. A lot of the things are still relevant, even though you're not actually playing the actual sports now. So, there's some things that aren't going to change. Some will change and some that'll remain the same.
Yes, sir. Now, with all that being said, Coach, and if you've seen this thing, if you were coaching today, what, would be some of the things that you would be trying to work on, to occupy your mind, and then that whenever this thing lifts, that you can be at least a little bit ahead of the game of some of your competitors?
Well, one of the first things I'd be doing is keeping in touch with my staff and my players, through the chats, telephone conversations, of course, FaceTime and that kind of thing. Number one, checking on their health and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do in terms of all the different guidelines that the federal government has put out, and, of course, whatever their local government officials have put in place for their respective cities. That would be my first priority. Then after finding out that everybody is good, for the athletes who could at home, I would be advising them. So we just have to make the adjustments. But everybody can do sit-ups, push-ups, planks and crunches and things like this. You can get that heart rate up and you can stay in some physical form of being healthy. Now, whether or not you can go out and run in your city, that depends on what the local government is saying. Where they can run, where they will not come in contact with other people, then I would suggest that.
Yes, sir. Now, Coach, being in basketball, it would be hard for, say, one of your marksman shooters to keep their skill set up without being able to go outdoors and shoot. I'm pretty sure that most of the ball players, especially on an FCS level, doesn't have even a half court that they could do on the indoors or the outdoors, because outdoor shooting would affect you when it comes to indoor and vice versa. So what would you recommend for guys in that situation?
Well, those that have a goal at their house and can do it by themselves, I would say, just do that. But I think at this particular time, I think the most important thing is the exercise, staying in shape. You may not be able to work on the fundamentals right now, the fundamentals of shooting, but now you can dribble a basketball in your garage. You can dribble a basketball. You might be able to dribble it in your house, depending on how it's constructed and whether or not you have permission to do that, because most of these kids are still living at home with their parents. And I know coming up, my mother wouldn't let us dribble a ball in the house. So that might not be good. But I would just want them to try to stay in shape, exercise as much as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then, of course, we would want to check in on their progress because that's all that we could do because none of the kids are on campus right now. So that would be the biggest thing that I would be trying to do. And at the same time, keeping abreast with my staff and my administration at my school.
We're talking right now with Coach Van Pettaway. He is a basketball analyst at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. A nice run at Alabama A&M. And, Coach, let's talk about this business side of thing right now. We know the obvious that the games are done. The NCAA has just released the funding that they're going to distribute back to the universities, and it is way below what they've been accustomed to. And when it comes to trying to replace that money, let's be honest, especially on our level, that money won't be replaced. And it's changed the dynamics of fundraising and game guarantee as we once upon a time knew it. How do you go about trying to work up a game plan to counter that we're in right now?
Well, I think it's going to be tough to recoup anything that you lost for this year because a lot of times most of your money is based on advertisement, and so there's no advertising because there are no games. So you lost that. And most of the schools, especially on the HBCU side, we don't have a reserve in athletics. Most of the I don't know there's not a HBCU athletic program that's running in the black. All of them are running a deficit. So there's no reserve to make that up. That's just money gone. What you don't want it to do is to hurt you next year and the year after.
And speaking of that, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, Coach.
Go ahead. You okay?
No, but speaking of the future, the numbers are coming out right now, and the fortune tellers, if you would, soothsayers, prognosticators of football, they are beginning to be a bit uneasy right now because it's looking like is going to affect the football season as well. I've been on record for saying I don't think we'll have anything until 2021, just safety issues, and for ease of mind, because this has been a psychological drain on everybody involved throughout the world as much.
Right, I agree with you. I agree with that assessment. I think athletics is going to be effective for this fall. With football and the fall sports coming up first, I think they'll see it first. And I don't see, because of the physical nature of the game, this thing continues to go. If it goes to the beginning of the summer, they're gonna have to do away with football for this year, because the bodies, the athletes will not have enough time to get their bodies ready to play. And on the physical side. And then, of course, we have not even addressed the mental aspect of it. You're going to have plenty of kids out there that are not going to want to compete because they're going to be afraid that if they get close to somebody, they're going to be affected. Even though when they lift this ban, there'll still be plenty of athletes that'll be skeptical. There are going to be coaches that are going to be skeptical about whether or not it's a good idea or a good place to go back as business as usual.
Well, and when you bring that up, Coach, a reality on the FCS HBCU level, we're not fortunate to have the multi-million-dollar television deals that everyone else has.
Right.
We are totally dependent on whatever gates come through the door.
That's true.
And with this 6-foot social practice that I don't see that going away even when this ban is lifted, how do you then control a stadium seating, a basketball seating of people keeping 6 feet away from each other, even with the way seats are constructed? So the only way that you could possibly even try to generate some source of income is that you would have to literally keep people out, and hopefully you can put together a streaming package and try to sell your season tickets in that manner.
Right, that would be the only thing. And then, and on the HBCU side, I don't think you'll get enough interest to even break even with that. I don't think it'll be cost effective. I don't think that's going to be cost effective. We're going to take a big hit. When I say we, I'm talking about the HBCUs. This virus will hurt us more than it will the Power 5 schools.
No
because
doubt.
we were already grossly underfunded.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, all this is going to do is put more pressure on those ADs who are going to turn around, put more pressure on those coaches, particularly in the sport of basketball, to go out and bring money in. Now, some of those schools are going to have to play more games than they're accustomed to playing to bring money in, guarantee money in, money that they'll never see.
No doubt.
And see that's been my gripe the entire time that these schools have moved up to the Division I, and this money came about where you can make these guarantee games. That's been my gripe the whole time, because you don't have enough administrators that are allowing those programs that are going out to make this money. They're not putting any back into those programs, and it's showing it. The effects are there. You look at the records. They're not using the money to upgrade facilities. They're not using the money to make sure that the athletes are taken care of. See, what a lot of people don't know, Dr. Prince, there are ways for scholarship athletes to put some money in their pocket. The first way is the free money that they receive if they qualify through FAFSA, which is financial aid. That's almost $6,000 that an athlete could get per year, per calendar year. Then the NC2A turned around, and they have what is called a needy student fund. That's money that goes to the institutions every year that can be distributed to the student athletes. Now, that money, that amount varies from school to school because it's based on how many scholarships you offer and how many student athletes you have, okay? But that's money that student athletes can get on an annual basis that can go in their pockets that a lot of the schools are not doing because they find other uses for that money instead of putting it directly in the student athlete's pocket. Then the NC2A in the last 3 or 4 years, they came up with a cost of attendance. Now, that figure is based on the total cost of for the athlete to attend that institution and the distance from that institution and his home of record. So in other words, if a kid came down here to Alabama A&M from Chicago, they would compute the mileage from his home in Chicago to Alabama A&M. So now that amount of money per athlete is different. It's based on where you come from. That's money, another stream of money that the NC2A put out there for the athletes. Now, I guarantee you, on the HBCU level, there's no more than 2 schools that are giving out that kind of money. And the only one that I know in the SWAC would have been Texas Southern. And that's when Mike Davis was there. Now, if they're still doing it, I don't know. But when Mike was there, these are the kind of things, incentives he was using to get players to come.
Wow.
All the schools are not doing this. In fact, at a lot of the schools, the kids aren't even getting their financial aid money because the schools are packaging that as part of their scholarship.
Mm.
So in other words, what they're doing, if you qualify for FAFSA, your FAFSA money goes on your account, and then your athletic scholarship pays the difference. That's not a full scholarship.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, to I guess, come to the rescue of those institutions that decide to operate like that, could they say they're using that method because they're already low on funding, so this is a way to offset that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's what they're doing. Okay, but here's the thing. Let me ask you this. If you already know this, then why are you making this leap up? Well, if you know that you can't afford it the way it should be, why be on that level? Come down and play on your own level.
I think the terminology for that was trying to keep up with the Joneses.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. Now we're talking right now with Coach Van Pettaway, basketball consultant for the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Coach, you're speaking, and some people that might be hearing this, they go, "Oh, that's doom and gloom," but it's a reality that we've got to deal with and face. Now, as you mentioned, the Power Fives, they have reserves for the most part. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 90 to 95% of the Power Fives don't have anything to worry about as much as we would. And
That's correct.
With that being said, we know there's a minimum requirement of 14 sports to be qualified as a Division I program, and we know that the Power 5 institutions, they're not going to change because of the smaller guys' struggle. At this point, it's every man for himself. So one or two things that are obviously coming down the road that I see, and maybe you can help me out. You got a little bit tenure on me, and so you can help a young bull get back in line. Are we to the point to where we're going to have to eliminate some sports and possibly reclassify our institutions?
No, I think what's going to happen, and this is what the Power Fives are doing. They're trying to create another division, which would help the rest of us. If they created that other division, they would move away from where we are now, and they would have their own set of rules. And now the rest of us, we stand a better chance. Because in my opinion, if they create another division, they're going to play amongst themselves. In other words, we wouldn't have to play them.
Okay.
Now, and then, to me, that helps us. Because now you got a chance of beating some of the other schools who are not Power 5 in that Power 5 conferences.
Now, which also opens up the can of worms that would, i.e., eliminate the guarantee games. And now the rubber meets the road when it comes to fundraising, because depending on who you ask, some people say fundraising is solely the part of the athletic director, is partially part of the athletic director, and some even say it's not as heavy on the table of contents for athletic directors. How do you see that if that were to go down, affecting HBCUs?
Well, I think in a sense now, every athletic staff member should be on board for fundraising, but it should not be your main objective. Your main objective is your team. The athletic director, and on most campuses, they've got a development office or research, or however they want to call it. That's their job. Now, as a coach, we can assist by going out, by speaking, by being cordial to the people that they bring on campus, or being available, rather, for the people that they bring on campus that are attempting to donate money to our athletic programs or to our university. So you can still use the athletic side of it to help with the fundraising, but where the coaches are concerned, that should not be their primary goal. In other words, you don't use my team to raise money that you should already have for the team. And if we're going to use this formula, we should develop a formula where a percentage of the money that we bring in goes back to the program. You got to feed the cow you're getting the milk from.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're not having an argument out of me, Coach. Now, let me ask you this question, Coach. You're saying that I know the coaches should be focused on coaching because they have multiple hats to wear, different personalities, depending on what sport it is. We have to be talking about basketball. So you have 15 players, and when you count coaches, staff, you're looking 25 people that you have to manage and deal with different personalities. So you got enough on your plate as a head coach. When you start dissecting this thing, and let's just go a general number of 100 athletic directors on the FCS level, not FBS, but on FCS. Out of those 100 athletic directors, how many of them would you say would have a top priority of fundraising?
Well, you would the best scenario would be all 100 had that as their top priority to raise funds for the athletic program, because the athletic programs do not operate in the black. So you would want that to be the number one priority, is for them to as they part of their job is to raise money for that athletic program. But I would venture to say that's only happening probably 60% of that 100, where they are putting that as a top priority.
Okay. Do you have an explanation of why that would not be considered a top priority?
Well, because different philosophy at different places. Each institution has their own way of doing business, and that might not be the strong suit of that athletic director.
Okay.
You got some ADs out there that will tell you that, hey, that's not my strong suit. That's why they had to go out and hire firms to help them bring in dollars. And see, as coaches, well, we have to be available. Like, we need to go out to the alumni. If the alumni are going to give, we need to be a part of that. We need to go out and encourage them to give back to the university. So now, when it came to alumni events around the country for Alabama A&M, I went to as many of them as I could, because I wanted them to know that, hey, we need your funds, not just basketball. All athletic teams we need money.
Yes, sir.
Because there is no way the state funds or the money that the university gives a team is not enough.
I think that's where people get a little bit confused. Yes, there is a general budget that sweeps the entire gamut of every department that you have at that said institution. But there are side ventures, if you allow me to put it that way, that are, I think, a mandatory need for, and we're speaking athletics, of course. We know each department, science, biology, history, all of them have their own needs. But in order for that athletic program to stay on the competitive edge on and off the court or the field, whichever your sport is, it's imperative that fundraising becomes an integral part of that department.
Right, you have to, because there's not a president in America, I don't care what level it is going to fund the athletic department at the top capacity, because they can't, because there are too many other things. And athletics is a drop in the bucket on most campuses. So you're not going to put all your money into athletics. That money is going to go for the benefit of the masses of the students. So that's on the academic side. There's some, by the time they get through with salaries for the faculty, the upkeep, the maintenance, and everything that's involved with an academic institution, there's very little money left for athletics. And then on the HBC side, that's even smaller. So fundraising, outside money, has to be a priority for those programs to be successful. If they don't have a minimum of a $10 million budget, they're not going to be successful. Not today.
Yes, sir.
Not today, because it's too expensive. I mean, if the average person just pull up a ticket, I'm gonna talk about recruiting for 1 second. You go online and look up ticket prices from anywhere in the country to your present location. See how much an airline ticket costs. Well, in basketball, you got to bring kids on campus. You're not going to know the exact date for every kid that you're recruiting, because that kid might be waiting on University A. That's his main place that he wants to go to. But you're second in line, and now he's getting bad vibes from University A. So now he decides, okay, coach, now I'm available. I want to come to your city. Okay, if we don't have a recruiting budget that's set up right, well, you lose that athlete because you can't bring him in. You can't bring him in because you don't have the money to buy that high-dollar ticket. It's not going to be every time, because, most of the coaches that I know, we plan in advance. So we look at the 2-week window and all that kind of stuff to try to get cheap tickets. I have our university set up to bring the cost down. But there's sometimes when you got this stud out there and you got to get him on your campus, it's going to cost us a pretty penny just to get that one athlete on your campus. And that money has to be available. And the public doesn't know a lot of this stuff, and they don't see this. All they see is the results on the field or on the court. We're not winning, but they don't know why you're not winning, because you got all these obstacles you got to overcome as a coach.
Yes, sir. We're talking right now with Coach Van Pettaway, basketball consultant guru for the Open Mic Broadcast Network. And, Coach, when you talk about the $10 million budget minimum, I don't have the privilege of knowing every school in the conference of the Southwestern Athletic Conference budget. But just on that bare minimum number, how many of the institutions that you would guess off the top of your head are reaching that plateau?
If I had to guess, I'd probably say only 3 or 4. If I had to guess. I don't know anybody's budget. I don't even know A&M's budget. I've been gone so long.
Okay, and on those 3 or 4, would you dare to venture out who you think it would be above that budget?
I would probably say Texas Southern, maybe Jackson State.
Okay.
And now I think maybe Prairie View. So those would be 4.
Okay.
So I think they're there. Me personally, I don't even think A&M's made the $10 million mark yet. Now I know for a fact they hadn't when I was there.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now for, and all this is hypothetical right now, what would you dare to guesstimate the range would be for those that remain to hitting that 10 million mark?
I would say probably in the SWAC, the lowest probably around 4 or 5 million.
Wow.
Yep.
So that's literally...
Because look, all you got to do is look at this. I think this information is public now. Look at the schools that don't offer all the scholarships.
Right.
If you're not offering all your scholarships, you're not getting close to that mark. Scholarship, the cost of attendance at your university is one of the largest factors when it comes to making up your budget. Some people want to include scholarship as part of the operation. I separate that.
Yes,
but all the schools are not giving all the scholarships.
Yes, sir.
But let me put it like this. I mean, there's no secret now. When I coached at Alabama A&M, I never had all my scholarships for basketball. But we won. But you couldn't win on a consistent basis because I couldn't redshirt anybody.
Right.
The kids that I had on scholarship, I had to play them. Yeah, whether they were ready or not.
Right. Now, with that being said, Coach, because you're going to always have some people that understand the struggle and some that's going to always contest the struggle. So what if it comes to a decision, they say, okay, you want this third assistant, and the third assistant might be what it would cost for 3 scholarships. Which one do you do? Do you hire that assistant, or do you go and get the 3 extra players or offer those 3 extra players scholarship? And people say, well, you have the money, it's just how you choose to spend it. How do you respond to that?
Well, okay. In my case, if I had been given the opportunity to decide whether to add another coach or give him some more scholarships, I would have taken the scholarships. See, I never had a full staff either. So see, I've never experienced that, having a full staff. I've never experienced on the Division I level having all my scholarships.
Wow.
But I think if they presented that to me, I would go for the scholarships.
Okay. Now,
and then the rest of us just roll our sleeves up and do the work that other assistant would have been doing.
Now, give me your perfect scenario on what would be an ample enough staff to get your job effectively done.
3 full-time assistants. Give me a operations guy, and then of course you make sure that I have a dedicated administrative assistant.
Okay.
You
Now,
know, and some schools, you don't even have the basketball program or individual sports program. They don't have their own administrative assistant. They're sharing somebody.
right, right. And so, once again, could it be trying to keep up with the Joneses? Just for the way it sounds, I'm a D1 program, or I'm a D1 coach. Do you think all that is, I guess, for the old terminology, fake it until you make it syndrome?
Right. I think that's what happened. That's what happened years ago. Everybody looked at that revenue money that was being divided up, and they said, "Hey, we want to be a part of that. It's more prestigious to be a part of this." And then you jumped out there without knowing how much it would really cost. You know, you got some schools that you take here in the state of Alabama, North Alabama. They moved from Division II to Division I. They said, "Well, we're going to wait and raise $3 million before we move up." They came back after 2 years and said, "You know what? We're going to delay this move up because we need more money than that." You know, they wanted to try to come up with a $3 million pot before they ever made that move. So they moved that up to $5 million. When they got to the $5 million, that's when they moved up. Can I tell you that there are some HBCUs that moved up without 1 cent?
Wow.
Without 1 penny?
Wow.
Extra?
That's a twofold message from my set of lens. That's poor management, poor leadership.
That's real. That has happened.
Wow. Wow. And you put yourself in these predicaments, then you look for someone to have mercy or bail you out. And old blues song, Albert King, says my own fault. You know anything about that one, Coach?
Yeah, man. Yeah. And then, unfortunately, the people that suffer are your athletes and the coaches. The coaches are losing their jobs left and right because, in some cases, they do not have what they need to compete.
And
They're not getting the athletes that they need because it's more to it than just throwing the ball out there, letting them play. Number one, you cannot run in the Kentucky Derby unless you have thoroughbreds. Have you ever seen a mule win a Kentucky Derby?
I've seen a mule drag the Derby grounds for the thoroughbreds.
Right. You got to have thoroughbreds. I don't care how many X's and O's you know. If you don't have the horses to run the race, you're not going to win it. And see, it's more than just what happens in the athletic building. You got the academic side that they're not even looking at. Okay, what happens when you do find that super athlete? Okay, you bring him to your campus. You got one. You finally found you a thoroughbred. He's ready to go. You've convinced him to sign. He's signed. That athlete comes in, but he needs help academically. What happens if your school is not set up for that? In other words, what happens if they do not have people set aside just for your athletes? If those athletes got to compete with the student body, where does the time come in? When that student athlete has to practice, still go to class, now when does he get his academic help? If it's not set up.
And you know that goes back to what you stated earlier. A lot of institutions, I'll put it in this terminology, they tolerate athletics, and
right.
So their mentality is, well, he knew that when he came that he had to have certain, GPAs or whatever skill set to be considered a quote unquote legitimate college student. And then on the flip side of that, people say, well, these coaches are accepting these jobs. They knew the conditions when they accepted the job. They walked in with their eyes wide open. So why complain now? How do you respond to those two?
Well, number one, me personally, those are the things that I would be asking in the interview process. Do you have academic counselors? Are they available after hours for the athletes? Do you have a training table? How many? See, man, there are so many variables that come with winning and maintaining the program. How many of the HBCUs got training tables? For the athletes. When we expect these young men and women to practice during their practice time, when we've ran whatever energy they have, what's available for them to revitalize themselves? What's there for them? What's set up by the school, the institution? Okay, and during the interview process, you ask about these different things. Now, if they're not to your liking, you can ask, well, can we get this? Now, are they telling you yes, and then when you get there, they change their mind? That's why I tell all these young coaches, everything that you think you need, you better get it in writing. You don't sit across that table and accept a job because they nod their head that they're going to do this, and then when you get there, they go back on it because they can walk it backwards because you didn't get it in writing. That's being your contract.
They call that 3-card Monte, Coach.
Yep.
Now you see it, now you don't.
Now you don't. Right.
Wow. We're talking right now with Coach Van Pettaway. Always intriguing and interesting, thought-provoking conversation when I get a chance to dialogue with you, Coach, and I appreciate you making time with us on today. With everything that is going on, and I try to be one that try to look down the road, and if the dynamics are to change the way they are, can you see some schools eliminating multiple sports? And when I say multiple sports, they might go, okay, here's what we're going to offer for our institution. Football, men and women's basketball, track and field, baseball, softball. Do you think institutions could survive with just those sports alone?
They can survive, but I don't think it's going to be on the Division I level.
Right.
You have to provide the minimum requirements for Division I. So now you can do that, but you better be dropping back down to Division II. No, I'm saying so to survive at Division I, you have to offer the minimum sports requirements. So you're not going to be able to drop all those sports and remain Division I.
Right.
And then, like I said, now the things that we're talking about, too, it's not every HBCU now. It's some of the schools. Some schools have a plan, and they're moving forward with it. But if they're talking about dropping sports, they're talking about dropping down also.
Right. Well, and I'm talking about that's the harsh reality as far as the expenses to keep up with offering all the sports. And so let's say, for instance, the Power Fives, they get their wish and they start their new conference, and then you can go back and have a true rubber to road meeting with those who remain and do a survey and check and say, okay, this is what we offer, this is what we have, this is what our reality budget is, and through a consensus, a reorchestrating, if you would, or what would be the new D1 requirements for sports. Do you?
Oh, yeah, I can see that. Oh, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, let the Power Five do their own thing.
Right.
Then the other schools on the FCS level, now we can drop down. We don't have to offer as many sports.
Right.
We take that same money, you keep the money in the budget, and we reallocate that to the sports we already have that we are going to keep.
Yes, sir.
Now
yes, sir.
you could conceivably have a stronger athletic department that way.
Okay. Now I do know that people are going to hear the comment I'm about to make. They're going to probably nail me to the cross and consider me the Antichrist, but it is what it is. I think part of the problem is a lot of our institutions, whether they're HBCU, FCS, Division I, II, NAIA, they are spending, in my opinion, too much money in football for the return that they can get compared to other sports that they offer.
Well, that's a consensus of some people, yeah. Well, football is going to always, because of the number of athletes involved, the amount of equipment and stuff, they're going to always be the big cash cow. That's where you're going to have to spend your money. But this is what the schools have to do. Don't spend the money on football at the expense of the other sports.
But that's what's happening.
That's why in some of these institutions now, that's why football is king and is going to remain king, because they make it to where some of the football programs have what they need to be successful, and by doing that, they're depriving some of the other sports. And then when the other sports don't come up to par, now you got the alumni who have not looked at anything out there complaining because the other sports are not winning. Well, all we got is football winning. Well, maybe if you looked at the budget, maybe football's share of the money is so large, it's creating a pitfall for the other sports. So that's what they have to get away from.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because when you look at it, we know that 2% of our student athletes, not just HBCU, but across the collegiate gamut, make it to the professional world of athletics.
Right.
So that means 98% of those kids, that their college experience is going to be it for them once they've made their last out, shot their last jumper, ran their last play. And why not try to create an atmosphere that's going to be advantageous for them being successful than to go on what I call this pipe dream. Look at the group of fives. And I'm going to talk football. I know we've been talking basketball. The group of fives are what I call in a no man's land. They're not going to get invited to the big boys bowls, so they'll never be declared a true national champion. So the FCS has it, but we as groups, as far as HBCUs are concerned, we don't participate fully in the FCS gamut that's available to us. So we're in that no man's land as well. So why am I spending all of this money on something that I really could never become a true national champion of?
Well, that's it. Dr. Prince, you're not going to be able to answer that question, and neither am I, because we're not in their minds. As a coach, all you want to do is try to create a level playing field with me and the people that I have to compete against.
Yes, sir.
And see, when you're talking, just make me level with the people in my conference, and then don't judge me. If you're going to force me to play all these guarantee games, do not judge me on that.
No, I agree. I agree.
Judge me against my conference competition after you have made sure that I'm on the same playing field with them.
Well, Coach, here's something, too, that I've also, kicked around and played in my head. Just like the professional sports have salary caps, why can't we have a budget cap? Okay, if you're going to be in an FCS athletic event, here's the minimum that you could spend on that said sport, and here's the maximum that you can spend on that same sport. That's evening out the playing field, because now it's truly man-on-man, skill set against skill set, and made a better team win. Because let's be honest, the more you got, the more you get, and it has created a situation of haves and have-nots on the athletic side of the fields.
Right. Now, Dr. Prince, I agree with you. I would love to have a salary cap, and let me tell you something that I suggested years ago, and that's why I tried to get on as many committees as I could when I was active. I'm still on one now that I'm retired, but we got to have more people speaking up for the smaller schools, the schools that are not in the Power Five. Okay, we need some caps on stuff like academics. See, when you sit up there at the NC2A and you make you legislate all these new academic rules and guidelines, that in itself creates an unfair playing field, because the Power 5 schools, they got the money. They spend millions on their academic programs because you've made it known that if these athletes do not maintain these certain academic requirements, they're not going to be able to participate for you. Okay? So they can go out and spend $10 million on an academic center. We don't spend $10 million on our entire athletic program. So how is the playing field going to be level? I suggested years ago that if the schools wanted to remain in Division I, that they had to spend X amount of dollars on academic support or they had to get out. And when I'm on academic support, that's for the athletes. That's not for the coaches.
Yes, sir.
That's so that to show that you are putting things in place for your athletes to be successful academically.
Absolutely.
Because it's our job as coaches to develop the whole entire person. But our hands are tied on some of the sides of that person. Because on the academic side, I can't make those academic people, advisors and counselors and tutors to stay open and available for the athletes. I can't do that as a coach. And so when they legislate this stuff, that's why I think they should have caps on some of it. If you're not going to spend this amount on those athletes, then you can't be on this level. So now you'll see the graduation rates for the HBCUs go up.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, Coach, it's almost like an abyss.
Yes.
Wow.
There are so many pieces to this puzzle to have a successful program year in and year out. When I'm talking about success, I'm talking about not only just winning on the field, I'm talking about winning in the classroom. We need to be graduating these kids, putting out productive people in society. But in order to do that, you got to have certain things in place. Do you know that up until a few years ago, a lot of these schools were not even paying for these athletes to go to summer school?
Yeah.
How in the heck are you going to keep a kid eligible if the only time they can take classes is in the fall and in the spring when they got to compete and practice?
To be honest, that summertime was the time that they could catch up and maintain so they can get ready for the next season.
And you had schools that weren't providing the funds for the athletes to go to school.
Wow. It's a different time set, and I think that using this corona time, that some forward thinking needs to be made. Some contingency plans need to be made. So when this thing does reconvene, and I'm projecting, and like I said, I'm not the forecaster of doom and gloom, we're about a year and a half away from things picking up to what we considered quote unquote normal. And that's correct. That's a lot of time for the brain power to come together and come up with a restructured look. If it calls for the Power Five to start their own thing and a restructure of the NCAA Division I as we once upon a time knew it, then so be it. Because the money is not going to be the same. The games will not be the same. And student higher education will not be the same from once upon a time knew it. This thing has been changed forever.
That's true. I agree.
Coach, as always, man, I could talk to you all day, but we got to save some for the next giddy up, man. Can you promise me that we can do this again, sir?
Sure, Dr. Prince, anytime, man. I'm available, man, for you guys. I love what you all are doing, man. This is great, and a lot of times people need to hear this.
Yes, sir.
And so I applaud you all for the work that you all put in, man. So anytime that you need me, just call me.
Okay, sir. Well, thank you very, very much. That was our special basketball consultant, analyst, the guru of them all, Coach Van Pettaway, former Alabama A&M Bulldog coach. But, man, this man not only is an ambassador for basketball, he's an ambassador for the student athletes. He's an ambassador for HBCU sports. We want to thank him for being our special guest on today. We want to thank you guys for joining in and listening to what we had to offer on today. Remember, our social media handles for Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are all at The Mike Prince Show. The YouTube channel is Open Mic Broadcast Network, and our 24-hour dial-in message line, 713-570-6736. My time is far spent, and I must exit stage left. But until the next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.